Hi, my name is PeeJ, and today I'll be showing you a walkthrough of how I made this edit inside of DaVinci Resolve. I'll be going over all your basic transitions from zooming in, zooming out, in your sliding, twixing, time remapping, shakes, blurs, exposures, and color grading. Originally, I was going to provide a download link to these 3 scenes that I used in this edit, but due to YouTube's content policy, I can't distribute a download link to you guys, and trust me, I've learned that the hard way. Other than that, if you do have any questions about anything else, you can join my Discord server with the link down below, where there's a community able to help you with anything that you're confused about in this video. Alright, with that, let's get started. Don't know like the very basics of DaVinci, how to cut, how to import footage in. I would go watch a different video before you watch this video, because this is more getting into things, getting to working and editing with the clips on the timeline and in Fusion. I do have some suggestions. If you want to have the same keybinds that I have, I'm going to show you them right here. I have compound clip bounded to my letter C. I have open in timeline bound to my letter T, and then open in Fusion I have bound to letter X. Control backspace is delete gaps. H is my split clip button. G is my ripple delete button, and F is delete. These last two you don't really need as much as these ones, but these are my keybinds in order to make things work a little easier and faster inside of this whole walkthrough. So yeah, those are just some suggestions. If you don't know how to change controls in DaVinci Resolve, you can go up to DaVinci Resolve, go down to keyboard customization. Here, we're going to search for compound clip. And then right here, I can just hit add, and I hit the letter, whatever letter I want. Just for in this case, it'll be C, and then go through all the other controls like that. If there's a conflict, you can just override it for now. And then maybe if you need it in the future, go back to it. We're going to do this. We're going to use open in timeline. It's going to be letter T, and open in Fusion. It's going to be the letter X right there. Delete gaps. It's going to be control backspace, and then my split clip is going to be H. And for this control, I would just add H to the end of this rather than replacing the whole keybind. Once you did that, save it. You might have a thing where it's like, oh, you want to save the keybind, just name it real quick, and then you'll be off the races. All right, one more thing before we start. I want to change something in our preferences. So we're going to go up to DaVinci Resolve, click that, go down to preferences, go over to user, and then down to the editing tab over here. And then under general settings, I'm going to set my standard generator duration to 1. Also the transition and standard still duration, although 1 second. This is going to allow us to pull clips from our effects library that are just 1 second long instead of having it like 5 seconds long and then we have to shorten it down. I find 1 second to be the best, at least for anime editing. So once that's done, you can go here and hit save. Now we're going to go over some playback settings in order to make your playback the best as possible. So we're going to go over to the cogwheel at the bottom over here, and this is where our project settings are. Hopefully we're in 1920 by 1080 in the 24 frames per second. If you don't have that, you can just change it here, 24 frames put there, and then select the 24 frames around there. And we can go down and we can go to our cache settings, and you can change this. Usually you have larger file formats over here, and you can change your render cache format. That's the one that's important to DNX or SQ or HQ or LB. These are all the same, but you just don't want to uncompress because uncompress makes it a large file and a little bit worse playback. Also set where you want your cache bin to be. Right now I have it going to my external hard drive here, and yeah, that should be good. And then I also check all these off right now if you use user mode, and that should be everything in the settings over here. Now we're going to go up to the playback. We're going to go to render cache, and then make sure we have it on either smart or user. Smart, it kind of does it for us. User sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't in the latest update. And we're going to make some bins in our media pool first. So in order to do that, we're going to right click over here. We're going to make a new bin, and then I'm going to name them a couple bins we're going to use in order to sort out clips or our compound clips when we make them, because they're going to go into our media pool once we make them. And so I had put one as comps for our compound clips, make a new bin, and I put it as Twix for our slow motion, as well as we're going to do new bin and pop that footage. And then I think those are the basis of the most stuff you're going to need. And yeah, everything's going to be sorted into here. So we can open our footage bin, and then we're going to import our footage into wherever we have it. Here I have it in my desktop right here. The footage I'm going to be using here is the edit with me, and it should be there. You just drag that into DaVinci Resolve and place it into footage over here, and then we can drag this footage onto our timeline. It's going to have our footage of our clips and the audio that we're going to be using. Right here, you would probably have it open like this. I like to put it down like that. I don't really use the preview. Kind of helps with playback as well. I'm also going to open the little tabs up here real quick. So if you click this button over here and we have timeline view options, this is going to click this button for stacked timelines. This is going to allow us to, when we open up these other clips, to have these tabs pop up over here. So we can just go back to the main tab over here, which is with our main timeline. And we can just rename this if you want. F2 to rename it, and it's going to be like main timeline. And so now you can see that'll pop up there as well. All right, let's get to the editing. We're going to unlink these clips here because all of our footage is here as well as our audio. Let's mute that for now. We're going to unlink this. We're going to highlight this, and we're going to hit Control Alt L, and that'll unlink these clips to here. And then we're going to go and find the cuts where we need to. And so we use we can just drag this playhead in order to show where the footage is, as well as use our arrow keys to go frame by frame in order to see where it is, the cut is. So if we want to go right where it's scene changes, so here, that's where we want to make our cut, but we don't want to make a cut right now because our footage is not selected. So select the footage first, then hit cut, so it won't cut our audio. We want our audio to do the same. And then we're gonna do the same thing for the next clip around here, right there. Click and end, and then I think there's a black screen at the end here, so we don't need that. And click end, and then we can just delete this right here. Hopefully you know how to delete with the backspace button, and bam, we should be good. This is the clips we're going to use, and right now we want to sync it to our audio, so I'll unmute that real quick. And so we want to sync this to the places that we want to sync our footage to. This is the sequence of clips we're going to use. It'll be this scene, and then this scene. We're going to contain our clips first into the pacing that we want it. Then I'm going to do transitions first, and then I'm going to go into Twixtor in order to time remap our footage so it's as long as we want it to be. And then I want to go into extra stuff like adding shakes, adding exposures, adding blurs, directional blurs, just to make things look better. So I'm going to sync up our music first, and we can do that with markers. If we just hit M on our keyboard and make a marker on our timeline, we hit M while selecting something selected, it'll put a marker on the actual clip, but we don't want to do that right now. We just wanted to put markers on our timeline so we know where to sync it. So here, that's the main beat. We don't really need to do the first one. Here is our second beat, so I'm just going to go like right over there, will work. And then again over here, and here, and then maybe a little bit before this, right there. It works, and I don't think we need that marker right there. Backspace. All right, so we have our marker set up. We can just put right there. Go here. So in order to make the edit that we're going to do is we're going to do a zoom out at the beginning, and we're going to have it go zoom into his face, and then we're gonna have a fake zoom outwards in order to have like a hit the beat that's there, and then we're going to slide to the left to show her over here as well as this moving clip, and then we're going to zoom in and then go and do a zoom out at the end, and that'll teach you the basics of the transitions for our zoom out, our zoom in, and our slides. I'm going to line up the footage first. So we have over here, we can even bring it up to a little bit to see where we want it, and then put on multiple layers. That works. We want this to be here, and now I'm going to compound clip this footage into individual clips. And right now, since you don't have enough footage to go along the whole way, I'm just going to duplicate these clips by holding down Alt and dragging it to the right. I'm going to do this for the same for this clip, and we don't need to do it for this last clip over here because it already takes up the whole space. But then for the second part over here, I'm going to hit R on my keyboard and bring up these change clip speed settings, and I'm going to reverse the speed. So I'll change that there, reverse. Now it does the end at the beginning, and I'm also going to hit R again, and I'll hit freeze frame right here. And so it's going to stay on this frame for when it ends like this. And I'm going to do the same thing for this clip here. Hit R and reverse speed. It puts it backwards, and then click off, click again, and then freeze frame right there. And now we have this clip ending here, and then now we can compound clip our clips. So I'm going to go and open my compound clip bin over here. I'll highlight this, right click, go up to new compound clip, or since we bound it to C, if you did that earlier, we can hit C, and then I'll ask us to name the clip. We don't really need to name it. And then we just do the same thing for this. So for this layer, I'm just going to hit C, new compound clip, there's our footage. And then for this last one, C compound clip, there's our footage. And now we can shorten this down to where we want this to be. I want this one to be here. I'm just going to drag the end over like that. So that'll shorten that down. Bring this down like this, and there we good. And then we can also, instead of cutting this, we can just bring this down and it'll cut this over here. And then we can get rid of this here. Maybe cut this or drag this over to get rid of that at the end there. All right, and that's our footage, and now we're going to do transitions on top of that footage. In order to do transitions, what I like to do is put those on adjustment clips rather than doing it on the clip itself. And just like that separation, and see that we can actually see the layers of what we're actually doing. You don't know what an adjustment clip is? An adjustment clip is a clip that we can put onto our timeline above certain clips, and that'll allow us to control the clip that is underneath it on the timeline. In order to get an adjustment clip, we can go up to the effects over here, go to toolbox, go to effects, and then there's adjustment clip over here. If you have the star over here, you can favorite it, and you can put it in your favorites over here. So I'm just going to grab the adjustment clip over here, put it on top, and let's match it to the same length of the footage that is right there. And then we could alt and drag to duplicate this clip like that, and then I'm going to do that as well like that, and then I'm going to cut off the end right there and delete that. All right, now we have adjustment clips on top of our footage right here, and then we could go inside this clip. So either right click and open in Fusion, or you can hit the Fusion button and that'll go to the Fusion page of wherever our playhead is, and that whatever clip is on top, or we can hit X while our clip is selected, and that'll bring us to the Fusion page, which is where we are right now. And so when you open up the Fusion page, you're probably gonna have two viewers like this, and you're probably not gonna be looking at any nodes. Maybe you are. In order to look at a node, you're gonna click the node, hit 2 on your keyboard, and that'll show you where you are on your node space. And then I'm going to click this viewer, and this is gonna only show show us the second viewer. Right now we're looking at this 2 viewer. We're going to only show this second viewer over here as our main window. If you want to move around in Fusion, you could hold down middle click and drag the nodes panel wherever you want, as well as in the viewer, you can drag that as well. And you can hit Control F to recenter that. And you can zoom in on the scene by holding Control and scrolling into the scene and then holding down middle click to move around and drag wherever you want. Zoom in, zoom out, and then Control F. Yeah, that should be the viewer controls. And then we have these nodes here. So if you don't know how nodes work, you can go watch the Basics of Fusion by Casey Ferris. But we're not going to do too complicated stuff if you haven't watched that video. Basically, the gist of it is these nodes connect to other nodes in order to put effects. For example, what we're going to add is the transform node. So hit shift space, and this brings up this select tool panel that we can type in whatever tool we want. We're going to transform. Type in transform like that. And then you have these two transforms here. We're going to use the one with the XF at the end like that. Hit add. And then we need to add this transform node to our node graph that is here. So media in, that's where our main footage is. And the media out is where it's sending out to our timeline. So we can actually see it in the edit page that we're over here. So we're going to do that. We're going to grab this line and click it, and that'll get rid of it. We're going to drag the square to get the line back again, and then we're going to bring this to that yellow triangle over here. That is the input of this transform node, and we can view the transform node by hitting 2, and now we can see it in our viewer, and then we can drag this transform node to our media out at the end, and then view that as well. And you don't need to view it every single time, but I'm just showing you this is what it's connected to. And then right now it doesn't change anything yet because we didn't do any changes on our transform node. But click our transform node, we can see all the transformations that we can do inside the inspector panel that's over here, and that is either like the position or the size, and then other things like aspect or angle, and then flipping it to the other side, or even do some other stuff. Uncheck it, stretch it like this, something like that. But what we're going to do is we're going to do a simple zoom out at the beginning. So what we're going to do is we're going to keyframe the size. I don't know what keyframing is. Keyframing is allowing you to save a certain value. Each of these controls have values, and once you change the value, it has a certain look at that. And so when we keyframe, we're saving this value of whatever parameter we choose at this certain point in time, which is where our frames are at. Then if we go in a certain other length of time, say we go over here to frame 24, then we can make another keyframe with a different value, and the two keyframes will make a path or a line that goes in between all those values. So say you have 1 and 2, all these other frames in here will have values between 1 and 2 in order to make that movement in the scene. And that's how you make animation. And so what we're going to do is we're going to keyframe at the beginning at frame 0 over here. We're going to click the size, and that'll be our first keyframe. Let's go to frame 24 and click another keyframe. And I want it to end at 1. So we're actually going to hit this arrow where this keyframe is, and then go back, and this will be our first keyframe. And then we're going to change this value to 3. I like using 3. It's a good value for the zoom outs right here. And I'm going to go and play this back real quick. Hit the space bar. You can see our zoom out like that. And I'm just going to mute that. I don't want that playing back every single time. But you can see our zoom out. It's not very smooth, but we're going to smooth that out with the spline panel. So the spline panel is where we house the graph or whatever is the interpretation between these two keyframes in order to have it move. In order to get the spline panel, we can just go up to the right over here, which is our spline, and this will have our spline panel. If you check this off, you see this is the size control that we keyframed, and you can see the keyframes in between here. So what we're going to do is manipulate this graph in order to make it zoom in faster. So we're going to do like a slide type of shape. So what we're going to do, if you don't see this panel over here and have that check mark, you have this check mark, you can click here and hit Control F, and then I'll fit the keyframes within this little panel here, or you click this zoom to fit button, and that'll do the same thing, just like that. And if you hit Control A, and that'll highlight all of our keyframes here, and then we're going to hit S, and that'll kind of smooth it out, and it'll give us a different type of interpretation here. So right now it starts out a little smaller, and then it goes super fast, and then it ends a little bit smoother than we had it before with the linear interpretation like this. And so with S and smooth, it makes it a little bit nicer, but we still want it to be like more of a swing in because it's going to be a super fast zoom out. So what we're going to do, we're going to highlight these keyframes, Control A, and then drag these little handles down. See where this square is? We're going to drag this all the way down like that, and that should work. And then I have this other keyframe handle. I'm just going to drag it over like this, but I kind of like not made it align with the bottom. That's kind of annoying. But Control Z in order to undo that. And then if we actually hold down, click on Alt, and then drag this to the left, then it'll make sure that it's actually going left to right, and it wasn't going up and down like that. So something like that will work. Right now, we have our graph like this, and let's play back, and you can see it has a nice zoom out like that. And this is a little bit too stiff, like the movement. It's just like really, really fast. We can kind of make that looser. So hit Control A, and then maybe bring this out a little bit more like this, or even just let go of Alt and then bring it up a little bit like that. And maybe angle this down like this. Maybe a graph like this will work. And let's see, let's play back. For 24 frames, I think that's looking pretty good. And then next we're going to do a zoom in. So shift space. And if we have this node selected already, if we add the transform node now, it will automatically add to this graph. So that's kind of nice. So if you want to make that real quick, select the node, want the node to be after, and then that'll do it real quick. So we have have another transform node here, and I want to do our zoom in, and I want to make it about 1/4 or 1/8 of a second long, and in 24 frames, that'll be around from 5 frames to 3 frames, and let's just make it 5 for now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's 1/4 of a second, basically. And we're gonna keyframe this here, and then we're gonna go to the end again, keyframe again, but this time we're gonna zoom in, and we can just, instead of typing the number that we want to put in there, we can actually just drag, click and hold, and then drag this to the right. That'll allow us to zoom in with our, going left to right, dragging with our mouse in order to do that. And right now, zooming in to right there, we don't want to zoom in there. We wanted to zoom in on his face. So that is where we adjust the pivot point. So the pivot point controls where the point is on the image that we're zooming in. So we want to go around here, maybe like a 0.8, like over here, and then let's drag this to the left over here. That should work. Maybe we want this to go higher, maybe like a value of 1. Nah, 1's way too high. I think around here is fine. So just somewhere on his face, you see where that X is. So if we play this back, we can see really zoom in on his face. Let's adjust our spline, open the spline panel, and click, select all, Control A, S, and then drag down like this. And now we have like our start of our zoom in right there. And so yeah, that's basically it for now. And then we can go and finish this transition on the next scene. So let's go back to the edit page, and then we'll go over to the next scene. Let's open in our adjustment clip X, and let's add another transform node. This time I'm not gonna actually hit your space, but there's this little, I guess, kind of recycle symbol, but in a square, and that's actually the transform node in our toolbar. This is the toolbar over here. So if I click that, it will allow us to make a transform really fast as well. So that's another way of adding a transform node. And this time we're going to zoom in on his face. That is going to be around here. And we kind of want to match the same pivot point that we put before. So I believe it was at like 0.3 and like 0.9-ish. So that should work. And then if we keyframe at the beginning, let's go to 24 frames again, and then keyframe at the end, and then zoom in like this. That should work. Maybe a little lower again, something around there. I like to go like 1.2, and that's a good value to zoom in after a zoom in transition, because you want your values to always be going up. So we keyframe from 1 to 2, and now we're keyframing from 1 to 1.2. So all those values are increasing on the zoom. So now it looks correct. And then let's open our spline panel, select the node again, and hit size, and hit Control A, S, and then let's make a graph instead like this. So now it's zooming in just like that. It may be a little bit too stiff. Let's try that again. Right there is good. And then we can play back. So that kind of makes a seamless transition here. When you do a zoom in transition, you don't always have to move at the pivot point. You can just have it zoom into the middle, and that's fine. But I kind of wanted to match where the position of his head was, especially because these two scenes match pretty well together. So that looks pretty seamless to me. And so we'll do that for now. And I want to hit this beat here where it hits again. And so in order to do that, we're going to do a little bit of a zoom out. And so let's add our transform node again, and bam, right there. So we'll go up to the spline panel, and you can see where our marker is, where we placed it earlier. It is right here. Sometimes if you click around here and you kind of move it, I don't have that enabled on. If you just right click it, go up to options, and then disable a marker grab right there. And that'll allow you, so you can't move this marker, even if you try to. And so that's a little bit nicer. And I want to do a little bit of a zoom in. And so we're going to use a different type of graph and a different type of keyframing. So let's go here, and let's go 3 frames back from this point. 1, 2, 3, bam, keyframe. And let's go, I guess, like 24 frames from that point. That's fine. Somewhere around there is fine. Keyframe again, like that. And then this time, instead of doing a zoom in, we're probably going to do like a zoom out, because we have extra space because we just zoomed in. And so let's do a zoom out like this. So we're going to drag this value down. But we're seeing these values over here, and now we're seeing like values we don't want to really see. And so in order to fix that, we can go over to the edges and hit mirrored edges, and that'll kind of mirror the edges of the clip, but it'll kind of make it more seamless. But make sure if you do mirrored edges on one transform here, you want to do it on the other one. Do that here, then we see we have a little bit more real estate to work with. So bam, that's good right there. Maybe a little bit less back like that. That'll work. And if we move this pivot point up, it'll kind of hide where we have that point at. So maybe we'll do a pivot point at 1, and then we have a zoom out here. And so this actual clip is actually being shown, because we want to minimize the amount of motion tile or mirrored edges that we see. And then make sure, let's go open our graph here, Control A, hit S, and scroll this down here like that. And we want this vertical point of this graph to be under this marker, and that'll give us the fastest movement at the point of time where the beat hits. And the more vertical the line on the graph is, the faster the movement that you have keyframed is going to be. So yeah, right there, that works pretty good. That's synced pretty well. We can even make it faster if you want. We can just drag this a little bit more, and maybe drag this like this. And yeah, so that works for me. If you are getting actually both these nodes in the spline page and you only want one, you actually go to the 3 dots over here, hit show only selected tool. And so that'll only show whatever tool you have selected, the spline controls for that. So I usually have that on. It's a good addition to have there. We need to do the second transition for this, and this is going to be a slide to the right. So let's add another transform node. Let's go to the end over here, Let's go to the center, go say 5 frames, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to the left, and then keyframe again. And let's go back to the end. And then let's move this to the left. So right now we're still missing, all this footage, but if we turn on mirrored edges, there we have area to work with. And I'm probably going to do it like about a quarter of the screen, or like a third. If we hit Control G in the graph view, you can kind of see in between this point and this point, probably the best. Around there, maybe a little bit more is fine. Let's Control fit those, Control A, S, and then we're gonna make a graph like this, where it's gonna be like whipping outwards, and something like that will work. And so that should work for us like that. If we look back at what we're doing, we have a zoom in here, or pump out. Then our start of our slide at the beginning, we have our second part of our zoom out. And now let's go over here. Let's go to the next adjustment clip. Inside it, hit X. And then now we're going to do the second part of our slide. Again, transform node, just like that. Let's keyframe at the beginning. Let's go to frame 24, frame at the end. And this time we want to go to the beginning. And since we started moving the footage to the left, right now it's here. And then we moved it to the left like this. We actually want to start this clip on the right side like that. That should work. If you hit this arrow in here, you can control the actual position on the screen here. And let's put mirrored edges on. And so that is for our first keyframe. If we play back, it's linear, we want it to be smooth. So let's go spline displacement for the position, Control A, S, and move this graph like this. And in order to do this, I'm also holding down Control sometimes. If you have like another graph over here, and if you don't hold Control, it's going to mess it up. So out of habit, just hold Control like that, and then Alt click. Now we have our nice slide from there. And then last thing is going to be our zoom out the end, or actually we're going to hit another beat in here. It's going to be a zoom in over here, another transform node. Do the same thing we did before, 3 frames back from here, 1, 2, 3, keyframe our size, go to the point over here, frame here. Let's do a 1.2. That should work. Zoom to fit that. Control, click Control A, S, and then Alt drag this so the vertical point of our spline is right there. All right. Now, this might be a little too stiff if it's too vertical, so we can drag this out and make this slope a little more gradual like that. And that should work. And then we're going to do our zoom out at the end with a different transform node. Transform, keyframe at the end, 5 frames back, keyframe again, go to the last frame, make sure mirrored edges is on, and then we zoom out like this. Oh, we forgot mirrored edges on this node here. Go back here and zoom out, and so we see the mirrored edges, or we can even go further if we want. No matter too much on the last actual frame, we just want it to be here. Fine. Okay, we'll fit that. Control A, S, and Control move that handle, Alt drag this handle, and that should be good around there. We don't need to make it, it's only 5 frames if you don't make it that stiff, but yeah. So now if we play this back, we just hit this replay at the beginning and play this back. Maybe something like that. It's not too bad. And now I'm going to go into how to Twixtor or make everything super slow-mo and nice and smooth in our clips. So let's go to our first clip, and I want to right click and go to open in timeline. But since I have that bound to T, I can just hit that, click the clip, open in T, hit T, and then now we have our clip here. Now you can remember we have our footage here that we put in our compound clip, and we actually go back and we actually need to know how long this clip is. So if we double click this clip, sometimes we can get the actual length of the clip over here, but right now we're just going to go off the time code. If we put our playhead over here, it's actually 208. So if we double click this clip right now, it did say 208 over here, I believe, or it said 208 here. That should be the correct one. Let's see what's that on, right? If you right click this, we can see it's on that. Okay, that is for that. And this is on the actual source time code. So those settings should tell us how long the clip is. So this clip is 208. If we double click this clip, this is going to be 201. Is that correct? If we hold down this right side, go back and go forward, you can actually see the frames as well. 201. So that is correct. If we double click again here, so that should be 112. So we just got to remember in our clips how long this clip is or how long we need it to be. And this is going to be 208. Let's go into here. We want to have 208 or maybe 209 of frames in order to have that be super slow-mo for that period of time. So we're going to add a fusion clip. So that's exactly where we have it in effects library over here. Effects, toolbox, effects, and fusion composition. I have that favorited over here as well. Drag this down here into see it pop up over here. And then we want to go to 208 or 209. We want that extra frame there and somewhere around there. Bam, that is perfect. And then we could, if we hit D on our keyboard, we can disable the clip, or we can just like lock it and disable it as well right from there. And then we want to cut up this footage in order to get rid of some dead frames. So in order to do super slow motion, we need frames that are different from each other every single frame. And in anime, the way that it's animated, sometimes it's not always frame by frame animated. So if we go frame 1, 2, you can see people in this are not being animated. They're not moving, only the camera moving. we want the people in the scene to be moving at every single frame. Let's get rid of this footage over here. And we don't have that right now. So we need to cut this up and put it in its own composition. So if we disable our effects and open this media pool, we can go to our Twix bin. And what I'm gonna do, I'm just gonna duplicate this clip over here. So we just have our footage saved. If we do want to go and redo it and disable this layer and lock this layer so we don't mess up any of that footage. But now we're gonna cut out these frames in between the dead movement inside the clip. I'm just gonna use my cut key, which is gonna be H, and our arrow keys in order to cut where we want it. So we want to cut every time we see either our main character move or the main focus of our scene move. Arrow, arrow, arrow. You can see, let's zoom in like on his head or something so we can see a little bit better. And you see his hair move a little bit. See right there? That's how we know it's a different frame. Bam, new frame. And sometimes once you do it a couple times, you can see there's a pattern. So bam, it just moved again and then again. So usually every 3 frames for this footage is when we need to cut like that. And that should be it. Yeah. So that's the end of our comp. And then now every 3 frames is a different movement. Now we need to shorten this down into a clip. And we can just do this easily by highlighting all this. And we hit Control D to bring up our clip duration settings. And if we go to frames and we type in 1, that'll shorten all these clips down to 1 frame, and that'll be nice. And now everything's 1 frame, but now we have a bunch of gaps in here. So if we highlight this and now if we hit Control backspace, it'll delete those gaps. And then now we have our footage going super fast like that. So now you can see every single frame is different, and now it'll be super smooth when we put it in slow motion. But now we need to comp these clips together in our Twix bin. Have this open, highlight that, hit C, and that'll be our combo clip for our Twix bin. And now that's good. And we disable this and, re-enable our fusion composition over here. Now we have this clip. Let's disable this. And now we're going to put this compound clip inside this fusion clip because now this clip is this many long and we cannot stretch this clip longer because that's just doesn't have enough frames inside the comp. So let's go inside Fusion again, composition. We have this over here. Let's open up our media pool and then drag this clip to our media out or into our flow, into our media out, and then we can view it. You can see it doesn't go all the way here, but it only happens at the beginning. And in order to stretch that out so we can see this footage all the way over here, we're going to use a node called the time stretcher. So let's get rid of our Spline Panel real quick. And if we add the time stretcher here, shift space, time stretcher, we will add the node here. It'll also have a keyframe at the beginning of wherever we put it. So make sure your playhead is at 0 at the beginning so it can be keyframed at that certain point. And then we want to check how long this clip is. So because we can keyframe that value at the end. So click our media end, we can see this is 11 frames long. So we click our time stretcher, go to the end of our composition, and right there, that number, we can type in this source time, 11, and that'll be our footage here. So if we go and play this back from the beginning, you can see it's kind of blending these frames together in order to stretch that period of time in order to make this Twix or in super slow-mo. You can see right now, it's kind of choppy. We don't want that. So we're going to use some different settings. So if we bring this back over here, the media in, and we add something called the optical flow node, that'll prepare this node in order to be optical flowed, or DaVinci's method of time remapping. So optical flow. We add that node here, and then if we go to advanced and go down to here, we can put the warp clamp up or anything like that, but these settings should be good. Make sure they match up. And let's go to the time stretcher. And then now we have the optical flow. Now we can use the flow setting in DaVinci, and then now we can play it back, and you can see now these frames are being interpolated or using AI basically to copy these similar frames together in order to make a smooth movement. So once this renders or caches out in our Fusion, you can see this nice smooth playback like that. There might be a little bit of warping, so we need to make sure that on our time stretcher that once we have flow on, our clamp edges is on, preview back and preview forward are selected, and now we can adjust this timing in order to be even more customized. So if we go, let's disable this optical flow real quick, go back to our time stretcher and put this back to blend so we can see what's happening and playback super fast. If we go up to our spline panel and look at the source time, we can change this graph in order to manipulate the time in the way that we want to. And so let's Control F, Control A, and S, smooth out this graph. And then I'm going to make a sharp graph like this. So graph like that, and then a graph going like this. And this is the map that I use for time remapping. So to go super fast and then super slow. And then that slow-mo should be working with the optical flow. So let's turn that on, go over here, turn the flow on, and play this back. And yeah, now we have this nice movement like this with our super slow motion, just like that. Now that's looking pretty good. Now we can go back into here. We have this little red bar that popped up above our fusion clip, and this is our caching. So basically, if we play this back and that red bar turns blue, that means it's pre-cached or pre-rendered, so we can view it very nice and smooth in our timeline. And one little tip is if you're playing back and it's like skipping really fast, go to these 3 dots over here, hit show all video frames right over here, and that'll make sure it goes through every single video frame before it goes to the next one in order to play back. And so that'll make sure you are hitting every frame and making sure that every frame of cache is being loaded on a clip. So yeah, now we have that clip there looking pretty good. We'll go back to our main timeline. You can see the changes. Hopefully they updated and being made. that. So there's our super slow motion, just like that, looking good. So now I'm going to do that same thing for these next 2 clips, and I'm gonna go a little bit faster right now. So open the timeline, hit T again, and how long is our timeline again? Double click this clip. We can see it is 201. That's good. Let's go back to a compound clip 2. We want our fusion composition effects library fusion composition to be 2 seconds and maybe 2 frames long. That's 2 seconds right there. Let's go right there, and that's 2 frames. Let's disable that. Let's get rid of this extra footage that we don't need. Let's actually bring this up so we can have this duplicate footage here. Disable this original layer, and then let's now cut out the dead frames. So right. Damn, he moved. There he moved. Do it again, and just hitting frame by frame. And this one, we're lucky. Oh, we forgot to do something. We forgot to lock that original layer. Control Z all the way back. And yeah, if you do know that everything is consistent, for example, this is all 3 frames, you can actually make this process a little bit faster. And instead of cutting and doing all that, you can actually make it go fast forward. So I'm just gonna bring this up like this. I'm gonna hit right click it and go to my retime controls settings, or we can just hit Control R. That's our retime controls, and we can actually change this value. Instead of 100, we can change that to 300. And I don't think if we change speed, yeah, there's no preset for 300. And so what we need to do is manually do it. So we're gonna drag this top right here. I'm going to drag this down and until it says 300 that we know. There we go. And now everything's smooth just like that. Yeah, that's just another faster way in case you know everything is either every 2 frames or every 3 frames. You can use that method instead of cutting. But yeah, I'm going to click that, compound clip that, make sure it's in our Twix bin. There it goes. And now we can go to our fusion composition and unlock that, do that, and disable it. Let's go inside Fusion for there. Drag that down there, and let's drag this clip back into here. Drag this square to the immediate out. And then we can do all the settings again, or if we're lazy, we can go back to the composition over here, go back into the settings and copy these nodes here. Just highlight, Control C, go back and back to our composition here, and X, and then back to our original fusion composition. Paste these nodes, connect this line to our optical flow, then to our time stretcher, and then let's disable it by hitting Control P, and then go to our time stretcher. How long is this going to be? It needs to be 15 frames long, and this needs to be keyframe needs to be there. So let's go back to our time stretcher and let's click this arrow over here. It goes to our latest keyframe. That's actually outside the bounds of where we have it keyframed, and we're outside the bounds over here. So let's undo that keyframe and we can go back to original keyframe. Let's go to the end. We said that's 15. Yeah, it's 15 here. Type in 15. Bam, good. And oh, that's not playing back because we're on flow. We need to put on blend. Now it's playing back like that. It's looking good to me. Let's open the spline and source time. Control A, S. And let's go something like this. And I believe at 14 frames, it does the beat hit. Let me just go back and make sure it's right. Here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. I was close. 15 frames, it hits another beat. So I'm actually going to do a custom looking graph here. Instead of just having this here, I'm going to keyframe this at 10. I'm at another keyframe in the middle of this here. And maybe we can flatten this out like this. And actually, let's even drag it down a little bit like that. And make sure this is at a whole value, like this, have that a whole frame. 7, that's good. Highlight everything here. And I'm going to make this graphical like this. And we want this vertical part to be here because that's where it's moving. And so I can just drag this back a little bit there. And then drag this keyframe a little bit back. Oops, make sure you only have that keyframe selected. Drag that maybe 3 frames back. And then make this curve right here. This graph is called an S graph, where it kind of makes a little S there. And yeah, now we have something like this. And so now it goes in slow and then speeds up again. So that's kind of a nice effect. I want to make it smoother instead. So let's bring that down a little bit. Bring this over. We can even bring this keyframe a little bit over by 1. And yeah, something like this should work. Yeah. And then let's enable our node again, Control P, and then put the flow on. And then bam, now we should have something like this. Smooth, it's going in, and then he moves again when that point is there. So that'll kind of give us a little bit more impact on that beat hit as well. All right, let's go back and we can do that for our last clip, or we can also wait until like that's cache, but play it back right here. Yeah, it's see, kind of helps. So now let's do this on our last clip. Key open up, let's make a duplicate here. Let's make sure how long this clip needs to be. They believe it's 112, there we go. And disable that. Let's add our fusion composition, drag that into there. And 112 needs to be around 113, that works. Disable, lock that layer. And for speed's sake, I'm just gonna do real quick our little time setting like that and drag that down to say 300. That works. That looks pretty good to me. Let's open up our MIDI pool, combo clip that, and that's there. You can disable this now with D, enable this track layer, enable this video, go into here, this fusion clip, put that in there, drag that clip into here. And yeah, it's just a lot of repetition, but that's just what you need to do in order to get the job done. Let's paste those nodes that we have over here and put that into there, put this into here. If we hold down Alt and then while we have this over here on a node that's already connected and we let go, we can choose the input that it goes into. So we can just do that. Or I don't think we even need to do Alt if it's connected. We can just replace that right there. And that should work like that. What is our last frame? Our last frame is frame 14 at frame 36. And we can actually do another thing here. Let's open up our spline and bring this over here, highlight that and just hold down Alt and then drag this keyframe. And then that'll actually drag that keyframe that we have on here onto that point. So you can see that keyframe is right there. And then we want that to be on 13, 14. Oh my goodness, I cannot remember numbers today. 14, change it, and now we something like this. And maybe we need to adjust the graph in order to make it look like that. But yeah, maybe something like this. There we go, super quickly, and it's almost done. And I'm not gonna do the beat hit on this one. Doesn't need it that well for the impact of this movement. But yeah, there we go, looking good. And then have this render as well. And that is everything for Twixting or making our super slow-mo. Yeah, looking good. And we can just exit out of all these combo clips because now we can go, they're all here and they're all working. That's something we should have now. I think this has a little bit too much motion tell at the beginning here, or we need to make that graph a little tighter. So I'm just go inside this clip again. This is our beginning transition. Highlight that and Control A, maybe make that tighter, or even make that value a little bit less like that. And then now that should look good. Yeah. Not too bad, not too bad. Now we're going to get into a little bit more customization and making the transitions a little bit more fancier and a little bit more impactful. So what do I mean by that? I'm going to add blurs, exposures, and directional blurs in order to hide some mistakes that we have. And yeah, let's do that right now. So let's first start with the blurs. So we're going to add another adjustment clip from our effects library, drag it over here. And our blurs are going to start at the beginning, and we can have it sometimes bleed from one clip to the other. I'll do one of normal ones that I usually do, and then one that bleeds from one clip to the other. Over here, hit X and go into if this adjustment clip here. It should be 24 frames long. And then I'm going to hit this media in. And I like to use a node called the Focus Gamma. You can get it if you watch this video on my favorite blur in DaVinci Resolve. You can understand where you get that from, which is from Reactor. But for this sake, I'm going to use the blur. So I'm going to do shift space blur, and it should be the first blur we're going to use. Make sure that's on fast Gaussian. That'll work. If we put this blur up, you can see we have something like this. That should be fine. We can actually keyframe it. So you like at 10. That should work. Keyframe there. Go to say maybe around 12 frames and put that to 0. And then now that'll have like a nice blur at the beginning, and then we could have a graph like this. Hopefully you know how to do that by now. And then I'm just going to copy and paste this. Copy, and then where our playhead is, paste, and it'll paste right after our playhead. And again over here, for this one, let's give it that. I'm going to make a blur that goes into the blur, and then rather than starting with it. So let's go 2 frames back like that, and we can just drag this left side of our adjustment clip and go inside of this. And since we dragged it from the left side and this frame already started from 0, that's gonna make it negative frames, but don't worry, that's basically the same frames, but they're just in the negatives now. And so we can just go over here, keyframe at the beginning and go down to 0, or since we're already starting, we can go a little bit, maybe like 3, that works. So now it kind of eases into the blur for our next transition like that. So that looks pretty good to me. And then we can just copy this and paste this for our next thing over here. 1, 2, and back, and then looks pretty good to me. Next, let's add exposure. We can add exposure on the adjustment clip that we already have here, but I like to have another adjustment clip so I can know where it is as well. So let's put the adjustment clip down here. Let's make it the same size, that's fine. Go inside it, and for this one, we're gonna use a brightness and contrast. Shift space brightness and contrast. Let's add that. And you can either do the gain, which is the highlights of the image, or you can do the brightness, which is similar, but it's more the whole image, and the gain is only the highlights, but there's a lot of bright images here. So let's do the gain for this one. Keyframe at the beginning. Let's go 12 frames back. Keyframe again. Go to the beginning, and let's do about like a 1.2 value, and that should be a nice little flash at the beginning. And then make sure we adjust our spline like this. Control A, S, and then maybe something like this. We don't want too aggressive, but it gives us a nice little impact here. And then same thing for here, for the same method with the blur. You can do it like that, or you can just have it like that. I'm just going to do it like this for time's sake. Control C, Control V, paste it here, paste it here. So that gives us like a nice way of hiding the transition or any flaws with it. So if we just play it back like this, let's disable that. That's our original transition, and this is with it with the extra blur and the exposure. So yeah, and I'm also going to add another adjustment clip with a different effect, which is going to be our directional blur. So that'll hide the seam between this scene and this scene here with a nice blur with lines and streaks, and you'll see what it is. All right, let's add another adjustment clip and put it here. And I'm just going to add it for 2 frames here and then adjust it down right there. DaVinci doesn't like 1 frame adjustment clips, by the way, so kind of stick to 2. Hit X, and now we're at a 2 frame adjustment clip. I'm going to add a directional blur. All right, there we have it here. And for this one, we want to put the type to zoom, and we want to go negative. So we're doing a zoom out here. You can kind of see like the look of the blur. And so we're going to do that. And I'm just going to copy and paste this in between these cuts here. So here, 1 frame back, paste. And for this one, I just want it to be 1 frame. So make it short like that. Right here, I want this to be a zoom in instead of a zoom out. Go into there, flip this a little bit, zoom in. There we go, back. And then let's go back here. Again, paste it in between those. In here, and this one, we want a slide to the left. Let's go back to linear, and it's already going to there. So let's increase it. Now everything is moving to the right side. That'll be our seam for that. So it just feels a lot better. So there, and then we have this. Kind of gives it like speediness that the clip really needs. Yeah. And oh, also we want one for our zoom out at the end. So I'm just gonna copy this one that we have at the beginning. Technically this edit's supposed to loop. This will be the end for this part. Yeah. So now looks a little more seamless like that. Right now, if you're having trouble playing back, there's actually no cache on this page because there's no, this doesn't force render cache when there's adjustment clips here, which is dumb in my opinion, but it should. And in order to fix that, you can actually put an adjustment clip above all your clips here. So add another one and drag it here all the way across there. And we can right click it, go to render cache color output. And now it'll start forcing render cache to happen on this here. So if you weren't able to play back before, now you are able to with this, and there we go. One thing I forgot to add is shakes. So that's pretty important as well. So let's drag all this up, everything except the clip, drag it up 1 layer. We're going to add shakes. So let's add adjustment clips here. Same thing we did before. Bam. I'm actually going to just make it on one and put it on the other. So let's go inside this adjustment clip, X. So make sure, and now we are in that certain adjustment clip here. And now I'm going to show you how to make your shakes. If you want a more in-depth on how to make shakes, I have a video on it in this video, every single way to make a shake in DaVinci Resolve. I'll show you a bunch of different ways to make shakes. I'm going to show you the more basic way, which is the Anim curves shake way. And hopefully it doesn't get too confusing, but this is where the money happens. So here, I'm going to tap shift space, then type in transform, but I want the transform now without the XF at the end. This is the OFX transform that comes with DaVinci Resolve. And now we're going to put a certain expression or an animation modifier on this position Y, which is going to be our up and down. So right click it, go to modify with, and all these are modifiers that control the animation in a certain way. And this anim curves one allows us to grab a curve that allows us to have a nice shake. So let's go over here. So once our modifier is there, we can access the modifiers by going to the modifiers tab over here, go to the source, and we're going to change this from transition to duration. So now it'll adjust the curve to however long the adjustment clip is that we're working with. Now we can choose the curve to easing, go to the out mark, and then click elastic. And now if we play this back real quick, you can see it does something like this. And that's kind of what we're going for, but we want it to end at this value that's here. So right now we have this scale value at 0.5, and we want this offset value to be the inverse of this value. So we can double click this and type an equal sign into this box here, hit enter, and then this will have this expression tab that we can link other controls to. So if we click this plus button and go to the scale over here, that'll put the scale value for our offset value that is there. So see, these values are the same, but if we put the negative sign in front of the scale, that'll do the inverse of whatever this is. And so now if we play back, now we have our shake like this. We can adjust this a little bit more. I don't like having it be 0.5. Usually we do like 0.1 or less. So let's do 0.1 like that. That'll work. So because this clip is so long, or actually we can just shorten this down. We go like this, and then go back, and now we have some shorter, but now our shake is a little faster. I like that faster shake a little bit more. And then let's go back to our tools, make sure in advanced options that our transparency is on reflect. So I have our mirrored edges. And now we have something like this. Maybe I'll even go even lower of a value than -1. If we just hit down, that'll be 0. If we add another number, so you can put 1, maybe something there, maybe a little bit more, 0.5, that's half. Maybe something like that will work. We also adjust the time offset so we can have it start there actually. And now we have a shake like that, which is not too bad. Maybe we need to up it if we actually move the time offset. So let's go back to, I guess, our 0.1 that we had before. Now that's not a bad shake right there. That looks pretty good. And it doesn't show too much motion tile or the mirrored edges. You can see a little bit right there, but we'll live. Plus we're zooming out actually, so we can So I should bring that back over here. We're zooming out of the middle, so technically that won't be seen as long as it's underneath the transition clip. So that should be fine anyway. Go back to our tools. I'm going to do the same thing for our rotation. Kind of want a little bit of rotation as well. Right click it, go to modify with, in curves, modifiers. Go, remember, change our source to duration, curve to easing, the out to elastic. And this time we're going to do the same thing. The equal sign in the offset, quick whip that to the scale of this. And this 180 is way too much right now. Like, well, watch, that's way too much. So let's do even like 1 or 2. And that's not too bad. Works. We can make this shake a little softer by putting down the time scale. Something like that will work. Right. Now let's go back and we can copy and we can just delete, hold down Alt, and then we just have whatever selected here. And we just delete that. And we're just going to copy this adjustment clip here and here and here. All right. A little aggressive here. So I'm just going to drag that out. And now we have a softer shake because it's just the way that the shake is made with the adjustment clip. Yeah, like even we can go further out to say a softer shake like that, or we can go inside the clip and then lower our values and make variances of our values here. So they say this could be like -1, so it starts on the other side, or this could be a little bit lower than 1, and then we can adjust the time scale as well to make it a little smoother, something like that. Just a variance of the shakes, but sometimes, because we have so many adjustment layers and stuff like that, it gets a little glitchy sometimes. And usually if this glitches like that, I just copy this node and then paste it right back. And then it should recache all this, and then that glitch should go away. Like that. All right, a couple more final things in order to make the edit just a little bit better. We're going to add a color correction. Yeah, I'm going to do the color correction on this adjustment clip that we have here, and that'll be using the color tab. So open the color tab there, and for my color correction, I kind of do like a teal and orange. There's a bunch of different tutorials on how to color. This is just the way I do it. It's not the correct way always, it's just the easy way, especially for anime. So if you don't have this over here, you probably have a bunch of tabs open. The main one you need is this color warper over here. So just hit the spider web here, and it has the color warper. And I'm just going to start dragging values towards the orange and the teal parts of our image, and just making slight adjustments. And we kind of want to make sure that the skin tones are still looking at the skin tones. Like if you have the vector scope open here, hit that, click this, and then vector scope. And if we click these settings right here, and we can go and hit just gonna show skin tone indicator, and that'll have this little line, which is where the skin tones are supposed to be. But you know, this is anime, so it's a little bit different. But we can just drag it towards this. It's a little bit red over here. Maybe you can desaturate it by going towards the middle a little bit more. Let's do something like that. Let's put our greens more towards the teal. I like that look more, and it's kind of like, it makes a little bit everything more teal as well. Bring our blues a little bit more towards the teal. Maybe even our purples, like maybe desaturate it a little bit more. Maybe leaning towards the blue a little bit more. Maybe our reds, we can go a little bit more lighter orange, and put our orange, make it even more gold. I think it's a little too much. Maybe desaturate it a little bit right there. It's kind of just playing around until you find something that works. Right there should work. That looks pretty good. If we like disable it, oh, can't see anything. Never mind. Actually, hit Control D while having this node selected, and you can see the difference. So you kind of like enhances it. It looks a little bit more, I don't know, looks better. One more thing I'll add to this color correction is actually going to this curves over here, and go and these 3 buttons over here, hit editable splines. And if we hit these keyframes over here, we can kind of like increase the gain over here and also increase the shadow. And right now anime is like a little bright, so I think if I increase the shadow a little bit more, it kind of brings us out the darker tones a little bit better. Let's see, maybe bring this up a little bit more like that as well. So you can see all the colors over here, they're still in the bright. I want to make that black, more black like that. That looks pretty good to me. That is the color correction for this. I'm actually going to add another adjustment clip. The way I use these edits, usually put it for Instagram. So I put the resolution in 1080 by 1080. So we can either have this like this, or the edit's fine like that, or we can have a crop. So I'm gonna hit Shift Space, type in crop, and yours will look like this probably. Just add the node here. I'm going to say change this Y size to 1080. That'll be there, and make sure keep centered is on. So now everything's centered in the clip. Now you can see like we have like a 1080 by 1080 edit. What happened to our zoom in? I think it got messed up by the shake a little bit. Yeah, we can fix that after this. But our crop, something like that, if you want it. Another thing I like to do is put a filter node on it. So filter, Shift Space filter, add that there. And then there's a type on here called grain, which I have here. And I put that up to 4, and then put the blend down to 3, and then animate it on. And so that kind of gives us a little bit more texture, a little bit more noise in our scene, a little bit nicer. I'm going to disable that for now and save that for the final render, because it's a pain in the butt in our playback. So let's see. That doesn't look quite right. So there. We can actually just adjust this. I think this beginning part to make this go over a little bit left. Maybe something like that. Will that match a little better? Oh, that matches like perfectly. And I think this shake is just a little aggressive as well. Let's go inside the shake. I'm actually going to make this the same position. Position Y, make this time offset down and bring it like that. Now I have something like this. Yeah, that kind of probably a bit nicer than how we see it before. Yeah, look at that. It's a little bit of a weirdness there. Just because of that clip. I guess it is. I will extend the shake all the way here. Still not too bad. The zoom out is a little bit short for me, so I might extend the keyframes here. And that's this node. Let's go to spline and make this a little bit bigger so we can see like that. Control F. You zoom out a little bit. Control roll, and then drag it out a little bit more, and then just this like that. So the further we have the keyframes, the slower the transition is going to be, but the smoother it is going to be as well. Maybe just instead of having it click like that, let's have it parallel to the bottom. So now we have something like this, and now that looks pretty smooth to me. Yeah, so that should work. Yeah. All right, one more thing I might add is a flicker at the end. So shift space flicker, and I already have my settings preset onto here. I use this flicker gamma on 0.07 on speed of 0.6, and that usually gives me a nice passive flicker that's not too noticeable, but gives it a little bit more texture as well. And then now we can play it back and see our final result. I don't think it's too bad. The zoom out, I'm still iffy on. I think it should be zooming out a little bit more, but it kind of just zooms out and stops. But I think for the most part, it gets the job done. And this is definitely better than the original AMV basics tutorial. If you watch that, I think it's a good intro as well to like even more of the nitty gritty of the beginning of how to make an AMV. But this is more of a walkthrough on how to make your AMV a little bit better. Hopefully you learn something. And yeah, well, I have a work on basics playlist on all the tutorials I've made that help you learn the AMV making in DaVinci Resolve itself. I have this playlist kind of step by step on what you should learn in which order. And yeah, hopefully I'll add this here. And if you do make this edit and post it somewhere, tag me at PeeJ_ENT on YouTube and Instagram and basically everywhere else. And yeah, I'd love to see your edit, see how you made it, and hopefully that helps. Please subscribe and have a good day.